If your child repeats you, it's not nonsense. It's actually a bridge. A bridge. And here's how to cross it. Hi there. I'm Dr. James Thatcher. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. I work at Forest Psychological Clinic, and I specialize in giving autism and ADHD evaluations to kids, teens, adults throughout the lifespan. And today we're going to talk about echolalia. Echolalia is repeating speech, and you'll see three common ways that this may pop up in your child. One form that you may see is what's called immediate echolalia, so where they're going to repeat what you say pretty much right after you say it. Another form is what's called delayed echolalia, to where they'll hear something and then repeat it a couple of minutes, a couple hours, even days after they heard that phrase or word. And the third form that you may hear is what's called mitigated echolalia, to where they're making some small shifts in the phrase. They're saying some different things. And I'll get into some different examples here in a second. I should say that echolalia comes up in non-autistic toddlers as well. Repetition of language is one way that the brain learns. But in autistic toddlers, when they're using echolalia, it tends to last a lot longer. And what it's doing is it's serving a communication and regulation role. And I'll get into some of that here in a minute. Let's get into some examples. Let's talk about what it would look like if you asked your child, do you want a snack? Immediate echolalia would look like, want a snack. You see that? It's just saying the last couple of words in that phrase right back to you. And the communication part of that is that they likely want a snack. Let's go to the same scenario. So where you ask them if they want a snack. They may say the phrase, that's not fair. That's delayed echolalia. See how out of context that is? And they probably heard that phrase from a cartoon or a movie, and you would hear them say that. And it'd be out of context, but the communication is that they want something in particular. But we have to look behind that. We have to look at what the meaning behind that echoed speech is. And lastly, mitigated echolalia. So same scenario. Do you want a snack? They may come back with, want crackers. You see what's happening there? They're using part of the phrase that you just did, but they're also saying a little something extra on what they want. So now let's go into the different functions of echolalia, because it does have a function. Let's look under the hood a little bit. So where echolalia has several jobs that it's doing. One of the jobs that it's doing is requesting. So it's borrowing a line from something in order to get what they want. So you may hear like, again, please, another one, another one, another one. You see, they're repeating that same phrase over and over again. It's a request. Another job that it may be doing is that it's a protest. So where they may have certain lines or phrases of, not again, nope, 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 nope. It's something that they've said several times over and over again. It's a ready-made line that they're saying over and over again in order to protest that they don't want something. Another job that echolalia does is to help them regulate. So there could be a line or a phrase that helps them feel soothed and calm down, to where they may repeat to themselves, focus, focus, or calm down, things like that. Another job that it may do is for connection or to process, to where they may have, again, a ready-made line that helps them think about their response before they actually think. And if you think about it, I almost guarantee you that you've done this before too, to where you're like, let me think about that. Give me a minute. It's a ready-made line that indicates that you need a little bit more time, but you're still trying to stay engaged. Another couple of things that you may see, another couple of jobs that you may see is self-advocacy. That's not fair. That's not fair. Another one is planning, to where they may say and repeat to themselves, first this, then that. First this, then that. The point of all these different examples is to not look at the words themselves, but to look at the function. What are they doing? What is the job behind this? What are they trying to get out of this? the function of these. So now let's go over the different forms of echolalia that you might hear and what they're called. So one form is exact echolalia, to where you're going to hear the exact same phrase and in the same intonation. Hello again, hello again. They're saying it the exact same way and with the same intonation. Another form is mitigated echolalia, and we've talked about this before. Remember, they're kind of trimming off some words, they're changing some pronouns. It's slightly different. Another one is called scripting, to where they're using favorite phrases that they heard off of different media sources, like from anime, cartoons, movies. And another way to say scripting, another form of scripting, is delayed echolalia. Another one is palilalia, to where they're repeating the same word or phrases over and over and over again. So an example might look like go, 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 go. You see what I did there? So where the intonation and the how rapid that it's coming off can change, but they're saying the same word over and over and over again. And lastly, a different form that can pop up is perseveration, to where instead of repeating the same word or phrase over and over again, it's the same topic, to where this is just all that they can talk about. And they'll phrase things different ways, but it's like their mind cannot move off of this particular topic. So why does all this matter? Why going over these different forms and how they present, why does it all matter? Well, being able to name it and label it can help teams understand how to communicate and how to foster that communication in your child. And remember, this is about finding the meaning and the context behind what they're saying. So let's get into some developmental context. So why does all this matter when it comes to growing language? Many autistic children are gestalt learners, meaning that they chunk their language together. So they'll pick up on whole phrases at first, and then over time, break them down and start using it more flexibly. And echolalia can be a bridge to that more flexible language. And what you may see over time is a progression in their echolalia. So where at first it could be exact echolalia, so they were repeating the exact same phrase. And then over time it becomes more mitigated to where they're changing a little bit, right? So they're adding a word. So back to that snack example, exact echolalia would be, do you want a snack? Want a snack. And then further down the line, as they develop their language, it may be more mitigated to where I want snack or I want cracker, something like that. And then as it progresses even further, you'll see that their language becomes more personalized, to where they're using different words and phrases that are more communicative and in context. And then further down the line, you'll see them using shorter phrases and more personalized lines to communicate their needs. And I'd like to add, when adults are able to treat echolalia as a communication and not a behavior that needs to be erased or get gotten rid of, it actually fosters an environment for the child to start to develop more flexible language, not less. So when should you start to seek extra support? Because remember, again, echolalia happens it can happen in any child. It can happen in any toddler, because repetition is how we learn language, right? When you're learning a new language as an adult, you repeat these words or phrases over and over again. So when should you start seeking extra help? One sign for you to start seeking extra help is when the echolalia is causing them a lot of frustration. They keep saying something over and over and over again, and you keep trying to guess what they're trying to say, but it just leads to more frustration and they get very upset. There's some sort of communication barrier, and you definitely need to seek some extra help at that point. Another sign to look out for is when echoing isn't getting any better. It's been months and months, and they keep saying the same phrase over and over again, and their language isn't building. It's staying the same. Another red flag to look out for, or another thing to look out for when you want to seek help, is when they start getting really distressed in transitions and using the same phrase over and over again, but nothing really seems to calm them down. And in these different scenarios, in seeking help, a speech language pathologist who's familiar with folks that are on the spectrum are going to be able to look at the function behind it. They're going to be able to sample the language in real settings, and they're going to be able to work with you in developing a plan on how to help your child build their language skills. Echolalia is communication and regulation. It's borrowed language that's carrying original meaning. And when you start to learn how to listen for the job, the function behind it, you're going to be able to meet that person and meet your child where they're at much better. If this video helped you understand echolalia better, please hit like and subscribe. Feel free to share it with someone who's going through this or has some questions about echolalia. Also, feel free to stick around because I've got more videos on autism, ADHD, neurodiversity in children, teens, young adults. So stick around for that. All right. Bye-bye.